Captain Jack stood tall on the bridge of the horizon, his eyes fixed on the main screen. The massive alien ship hung in space before them, its smooth surface reflecting the distant stars. It was at least 10 times the size of the Horizon, Earth's most advanced exploration vessel. "Any response to our greeting?" Jack asked, running a hand through his short gray hair. Officer Pete shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. We've tried all frequencies." The bridge was quiet. 6 months into their deep space mission, the Horizon had detected strange energy signals from this uncharted sector. No one expected to find an alien ship of this size waiting for them. "Try again," Jack ordered. He felt sweat on his palms but kept his voice steady. This was humanity's first confirmed contact with an alien civilization. History was happening on his bridge. Suddenly, the main screen flickered and a strange image appeared. The crew gasped. It was hard to describe what they were seeing. The alien had a tall, thin body that glowed with inner light. Its head was shaped like a teardrop, with no visible eyes or mouth. "Greetings," Jack said, stepping forward. "I am Captain Jack of the Earthship Horizon. We come in peace." The alien did not respond directly. Instead, it turned and gestured to something off-screen. A moment later, another creature appeared. This one was different, bulky, with grayish skin and multiple eyes. It opened its mouth, and a deep voice filled the bridge. "The luminaries. Acknowledge your presence, primitive ones. You will follow our vessel to the nearest outpost for examination." Jack frowned. "We're explorers, not subjects for examination. We offer friendship and knowledge exchange." The bulky creature made a sound like rocks grinding together. It might have been laughter. "The luminaries do not exchange knowledge with savages. You will follow or you will be destroyed. The voices have spoken." The screen went dark. "Friendly bunch," said Tom, the ship's security chief. His hand rested on his weapon. Science Officer Nia, a tall woman with dark skin and quick eyes, was already analyzing the transmission. "Captain, that second creature wasn't one of them. Its brain waves showed signs of stress and control. I think it was translating under duress." Jack nodded slowly. "So the glowing ones are the luminaries, and that other creature is what they called a voice?" "That's my guess," Nia said, "and I don't think we should follow them." But they had little choice. The luminary ship released smaller craft that surrounded the Horizon. Their engines stopped responding to commands. They were being pulled along like a fish caught in a net. 3 days later, the Horizon reached what the voices called an outpost. It was a massive space station orbiting a red giant star. The station housed hundreds of ships and countless beings from different species. Under guard, Jack and his senior officers were escorted through the station. The luminaries glided ahead of them, while various voice creatures followed behind, translating orders. "The savages will be processed and categorized," said one voice, a squat creature with 6 limbs and scales. "Their technology will be examined and archived." "And then what?" Jack asked. "Then your species will be assigned its proper place in the order," the voice replied flatly. They entered a vast chamber with a curved ceiling that displayed the stars outside. In the center stood a row of large transparent containers. Each held a different alien creature, connected to machines by tubes and wires. The aliens floated, in clear liquid, eyes open but unseeing. "What is this place?" Nia whispered, her scientific curiosity battling with growing horror. A different voice approached. This one looked almost like a large insect with delicate wings. "This is where voices are made," it said. "The luminaries choose suitable specimens from each discovered species. These serve as translators and intermediaries." Jack felt cold. "You mean they're taken from their people and modified?" "It is an honor to serve the luminaries," the insect-like voice said, but Jack noticed its wings trembled slightly as they continued the tour. Nia managed to secretly scan the facility with a hidden device. The guards eventually led them to quarters where they would stay while the luminaries decided Earth's fate. "They've contacted Earth," Tom reported after checking a small receiver hidden in his boot. Our home base received a transmission from the luminaries. They're sending a delegation to welcome Earth to the galactic community. Welcome us as equals or as subjects? Jack asked. Tom's face was grim. I think we know the answer to that. That night, while most of the crew slept, Nia showed Jack and Tom what she had discovered. Her scans revealed that the station housed over 50 different species, most serving the luminaries in various ways. The voices were everywhere, acting as the luminaries' mouth and ears. The voices aren't just translators, Nia explained, showing them data on her tablet. They're biological computers. The luminaries have altered their brains to process and transmit information. They can't disobey or speak freely. Slaves, Tom said. Worse than slaves, Nia corrected. Tools. And I found something else. She swiped to a new image that showed a section of the station they hadn't visited. They're preparing new voice containers. One matches human proportions exactly. Jack stared at the image. They're planning to turn humans into voices. Not all humans, Nia said. Just enough to control the rest of us, and look at this. She showed them a star map with Earth clearly marked as the next target for something called full integration. Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the station. A voice announcement in multiple languages echoed through their quarters. Attention. Human specimen captured attempting to breach restricted area. All humans will report for immediate processing. Jack looked at his officers. Someone from our crew got caught snooping. Guards burst into their quarters minutes later, dragging a bloodied crew member between them. It was Alex, one of their scouts. Captain, Alex gasped. I found... They have plans. Earth is... A luminary glided into the room, followed by a humanoid voice with pale blue skin. This specimen will be the first human voice, the blue voice announced. The rest of you will witness the process to understand your future. The luminaries have determined that humans, despite their savage nature, have suitable neural pathways for voice conversion. Jack stepped forward. We won't let you do this. The luminary pulsed with light and the voice translated. Your permission is not required, savage. Your species will serve, as all species serve. The luminaries bring order to chaos. You should be grateful. As they took Alex away, Jack caught his officer's eye and gave a slight nod. A plan was forming in his mind. If the luminaries saw humans as savages, perhaps it was time to show them just how savage humans could be when protecting their own. They would find a way to cut out the tongues of these self-proclaimed gods, even if it meant war. Captain Jack paced in the small room where the luminaries had locked his team. Alex had been gone for 6 hours. The guards had taken their weapons, but Nia had hidden her small scanner in a secret pocket. We need to find Alex and get back to our ship, Jack said, his voice low. Tom nodded. The station is huge, but I memorized the route they took him. If we can get out of here, I can lead us there. Nia was studying her scanner data. Captain, I've found something important. She showed him the screen. These readings from the voices show unusual brain patterns. It's like they're partly conscious but trapped in their own minds. Can they be freed? Jack asked. Maybe. Nia's eyes lit up with an idea. The machines controlling them work on neural pathways. If we could disrupt the signals somehow. A soft hiss interrupted them as the door slid open. A voice entered, one they hadn't seen before. This one looked almost human except for golden skin and 4 arms. Do not speak, the voice whispered, looking over its shoulder. I am not supposed to be here. Jack tensed, ready to fight if needed. Some of us retain pieces of our old selves, the voice continued. When the luminaries sleep, the control weakens. Your kind has strong minds. Your friend fights the conversion. Even now. Alex is alive? Jack asked. Yes, but not for long. The process is nearly complete. The voice's eyes darted nervously. I can help you. Others like me want freedom too. Why would you help us? Tom asked, suspicious. Because in all my years as a voice, no species has ever called the luminaries gods to their face. A small smile appeared on the voice's face. Your captain shows courage. Maybe humans can do what others could not. The voice gave them access cards and directions to the conversion chamber where Alex was being held. It left quickly, promising to create a distraction in another part of the station. 30 minutes later, alarms blared across the station. Jack, Tom, and Nia slipped out of their room, following the escape route the voice had shown them. They passed other aliens rushing to respond to what they hoped was their allies' distraction. This way, Tom whispered, leading them down a narrow corridor. They had to hide twice as luminary guards floated past, their bodies glowing with angry red light. The conversion chamber was a large room filled with tanks and machines. In the center was Alex, floating in a clear liquid, tubes running into his body. His eyes were open but empty. "We're too late," Tom said. "No," Nia replied, rushing to the control panel. "The process isn't finished. Look at the status bar." She pointed to a screen showing the conversion at 87% complete. Jack stood guard, while Nia worked on the controls. Tom found a storage locker with their confiscated weapons. "Hurry," Jack urged. "That distraction won't last forever." Nia's fingers flew over the alien keyboard. "I can't stop it completely, but I can pause it and drain the tank. We'll have to carry him." The liquid drained from Alex's tank, his body slumped against the glass. Tom and Jack carefully removed the tubes from his skin and lifted him out. "Is he alive?" Jack asked. Alex's eyes fluttered. Captain," he whispered, his voice rough. "We've got you," Jack assured him. "Can you walk?" Alex tried to stand, but fell, back into their arms. "My head. There's so much information. I can see their plans." "What plans?" Nia asked, still working at the control panel. "Earth. They want Earth," Alex said weakly. "Not just for voices. They need our planet's core, rare elements. They strip worlds after converting enough of the population to serve them." Jack's face hardened. "Not our world. Not if I can help it." Nia suddenly called out, "Captain, I've accessed their main database. I'm downloading everything I can about the voices and the luminaries." "Good work," Jack said. "Now let's—" The door slid open. A luminary floated in, its body pulsing with angry red light. Behind it stood two voice guards with weapons pointed at the humans. "Savages," came the translation from one of the voices. "Did you think you could defy the gods of the stars?" Jack stepped forward, putting himself between the aliens and his crew. "You're not gods, just bullies who can't even speak for yourselves." The luminary's light pulsed brighter, and the voice translated, "Your species will serve, but you four will not live to see it. Your defiance cannot be tolerated." As the guards raised their weapons, the lights in the room suddenly went out. In the darkness, Jack heard sounds of struggle. When emergency lights came on seconds later, the golden-skinned voice from earlier stood over the unconscious guards. "Move quickly," it said. "Others are coming." "Why did you call them gods?" Tom asked as they rushed from the room, supporting Alex between them. "The luminaries believe they are divine," the voice explained, leading them through back corridors. "They come from a star system with intense radiation. It makes them glow and gives them long lives. Over thousands of years, they convinced themselves they were superior to all other life. They reached a transport tube that would take them to the docking level where the horizon was kept." "What's your name?" Jack asked the voice. "I was once called Morrow," it answered. "My world was the third they conquered. I have been a voice for 200 years. Come with us," Jack offered. Morrow shook his head. "I cannot leave yet. There are others to free. But first, you must warn your world." The transport tube arrived, but before they could enter, a group of luminary guards appeared at the far end of the corridor. "Go!" Morrow pushed them into the tube. "I will hold them off. When you return, bring fire and fury. Cut out the tongues of their gods." As the tube doors closed, they saw Morrow charge the guards, all four arms wielding weapons he had taken. The escape to the horizon was a blur of running, hiding, and brief firefights. Tom's security training proved valuable as he led them through the station. Nia supported Alex, who grew stronger as they moved, the conversion process fading from his system. When they finally reached the horizon, they found their crew ready. The ship's engineer had managed to restore some engine control while the luminaries were distracted by the humans' escape. "Get us out of here," Jack ordered as they strapped in. "Full power to engines and shields." "What about the other ships?" the pilot asked. "They outnumber us." "They're overconfident," Jack said. "And we have something they don't expect." Alex sat at a console, his hands moving with strange new precision. "I can still access parts of their network. The conversion gave me access codes. I'm shutting down their weapon systems. Now." Outside, the luminary ship surrounding them suddenly went dark. "That won't last long," Alex warned. "Their backup systems will engage soon." "Long enough," Jack said. "Get us into jump space." As the horizon broke free from the station, Jack looked at his rescued crew member. "What exactly did you learn while they had you, Alex?" Alex's eyes were haunted. "Everything, Captain. How they think, how they fight, what they fear." He looked up at Jack. "And they do fear something. Us. Humans. Our unpredictability scares them." "Good," Jack said, his face set with determination. "They should be scared. Because we're not going to run and hide. We're going to fight back." The horizon jumped to faster than light. Speed, racing toward Earth with its terrible warning and the beginnings of a desperate plan. The horizon raced through space toward Earth, pushing its engines beyond safe limits. On the bridge, Captain Jack called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. Alex sat with them, still pale from his partial conversion to a voice. "We have 3 days before we reach Earth," Jack said. "We need a plan before we get there." Naya displayed the data she had stolen from the luminary station. "The luminaries have already sent ships to our solar system. They're moving slowly to avoid detection, but they'll arrive within 2 weeks. And Earth has no idea what's coming," Tom added grimly. Alex touched his temple where faint scars remained from the tubes. "I can still access some of the knowledge they put in my head. The luminaries have done this to over 50 worlds. No one has ever successfully fought back." "Then we'll be the first," Jack said firmly. He outlined his idea. Earth alone couldn't stand against the luminaries' technology. But if they could disrupt the voices, cut off the luminaries' ability to control their empire, it might give Earth a fighting chance. "We go back," Jack explained. "Back to the station with a team of volunteers. We free as many voices as we can and shut down their control systems." His officers looked at him with doubt on their faces. "That's suicide, Captain," Tom said. "Even if we could get back in, the station has thousands of guards. Not to mention getting past their fleet," added the ship's pilot. Jack nodded. "I know the odds. That's why I'll only ask for volunteers." Alex spoke up. "There's another problem. The voices aren't just held by machines. The luminaries use a kind of mental link. Even if we free the voices physically, their minds are still chained." All eyes turned to Naya, who had been studying the voices' neural patterns. She hesitated, then said, "I might be able to create a virus. Not a biological one. A code sequence that disrupts the neural link between the luminaries and the voices." "Can you do it in time?" Jack asked. "With Alex's help?" She looked at the rescued crew member. "The partial conversion gave you insight into their systems. Together, we might be able to make it work." The horizon reached Earth 3 days later. As they approached the blue planet, Jack felt a wave of emotion. This was what they were fighting for. Not just humanity, but their home. The reception at Earth Space Command was not what they had hoped for. Military leaders listened to their report with skepticism. "You expect us to believe that glowing aliens are coming to enslave us?" General Mills said, his bushy eyebrows drawn together. "And your plan is to go back and cut out the tongues of their gods? It sounds like space madness." Jack kept his temper in check. "We have proof." He nodded to Nia, who displayed the data they had collected, including scans of the voice conversion chambers. Alex stepped forward. "Sir, I was almost turned into one of these voices. The scars aren't just on my skin." He touched his head. "I can still feel them in my mind." The luminaries are real and they're coming. After hours of debate, Earth's leaders agreed to provide limited support. They couldn't spare a military fleet based on one ship's report, but they authorized Jack to take a small strike team back to the luminary station. "You'll have one of our new stealth ships," General Mills told him. "It's smaller than the Horizon but faster and harder to detect. If you can bring back more concrete proof, we'll commit more resources." Jack thanked him, knowing it was the best they could hope for. As they left the meeting, Tom shook his head. "They don't really believe us," he said. "They're just humoring us because of your reputation." "It's enough," Jack replied. "We'll make them believe." Over the next 5 days, Jack assembled his team. Tom would lead security with 4 trained soldiers. Nia would handle the technical aspects of freeing the voices, with 2 computer specialists to help. Ray, the ship's demolitions expert, rounded out the team. Meanwhile, Nia and Alex worked day and night on the neural virus. Alex drew on the luminary knowledge forced into his brain during the partial conversion, while Nia applied her scientific expertise to create the disruption code. Ornore. The 5th day, they presented their work to Jack in the ship's lab. "We call it the whisper virus," Nia explained, showing a simulation on her screen. "It doesn't permanently break the luminary's control, but it creates a kind of static in the neural link. The voices will be able to act on their own for a short time, maybe an hour." "An hour might be enough," Jack said. "Can it be delivered remotely?" Alex nodded. "We need to access the main control hub on the station, but once we're there, we can send it through the entire network. Every voice in the Luminary Empire will hear the whisper of freedom at the same time." Jack studied the faces of his team. They all understood what they were risking. If they failed, Earth would face the luminaries with no warning and no defense. "One more thing," Alex said hesitantly. "I've been having dreams, memories that aren't mine. I think they belong to the voice they were trying to make me into." "What kind of memories?" Jack asked. "There are others working against the luminaries. From within. The voice who helped us, Moro, is part of a resistance. They've been waiting for a chance for someone strong enough to strike back. This news gave them hope. They might not be fighting alone after all." The night before their mission, Jack couldn't sleep. He walked the quiet corridors of the Earth space station where they were preparing to depart. In the observation deck, he found Ray staring out at the stars. "Having second thoughts?" Jack asked, joining him at the window. Ray was a quiet man, older than most of the crew, with steady hands and calm eyes. "No, sir. Just saying goodbye, I guess." Jack understood. None of them expected to return from this mission. "The luminaries think we're savages," Ray said after a moment. "Maybe they're right. When animals are cornered, they fight the hardest." "We're not animals," Jack replied. "But we will fight. Not just for ourselves, but for all the species they've enslaved." "You know," Ray said thoughtfully. "In the old days on Earth, when explorers found new lands, they often claimed to be gods to control the natives. It never ended well for the false gods when the truth came out." Jack nodded, finding comfort in the comparison. History repeats itself even among the stars. At dawn, they boarded the stealth ship provided by Earth Command. It was sleek and black, designed to avoid detection rather than win a direct fight. Jack named it the Shadow. As they prepared for departure, General Mills approached Jack on the boarding ramp. "I've got orders to give you 72 hours, the general said. "After that, we start full preparations for defense, with or without more proof. We'll be back before then," Jack promised. "With allies." The general handed him a small metal case. "Our scientists studied your data. These might help free the voices permanently. It's experimental but worth trying." Inside the case were 12 small devices, each no bigger than a coin. "Thank you," Jack said, surprised by the gesture. The general nodded curtly. "Good hunting, Captain. Show these so-called gods what happens when they threaten humanity." The Shadow lifted off silently, its dark hull almost invisible against the blackness of space. Jack gazed one last time at the blue-green sphere of Earth before they jumped to faster-than-light speed. Their desperate mission had begun. The Shadow moved quietly through space, its dark hull absorbing rather than reflecting light. Inside, Captain Jack and his team made final preparations. They had traveled for 3 days, taking a longer route to avoid luminary patrols. "We're approaching the outer sensor range," the pilot announced. "Stealth systems at maximum." Jack nodded. "Hold this position." He turned to his team gathered in the small command center. Time to review the plan one last time. Nia brought up a holographic map of the luminary station. "We'll dock here at a maintenance port on the lower level. According to Alex's information, it's rarely monitored." Tom pointed to several red dots on the map. "Security checkpoints are here, here, and here. We'll need to avoid them or deal with them quietly." "Once we're inside," Alex continued, "we split into 2 teams. Nia, Ray, and I will head to the central control hub to upload the Whisper virus. Captain Jack, Tom, and the others will go to the voice containment area to free as many as possible, starting with the resistance members Morrow mentioned." Jack studied the map. "Time is our enemy. The moment they detect us, they'll lock down the station. We'll have 30 minutes at most before escape becomes impossible." Ray held up the small devices General Mills had given them. "We figured out how these work. They're neural disruptors. If we place them on the connection points where the voices link to the luminary network, they should permanently block the control signal." "How many voices can we free?" Jack asked. "With 12 devices, maybe 20 if we're lucky," Nia answered. "We'll prioritize those with technical knowledge or military skills who can help our cause." Jack looked at each member of his team. There were 9 of them total, a small force against an empire. "Remember, this isn't just about saving Earth. Every voice we free is a person rescued from slavery. Every piece of intelligence we gather helps all species resist the luminaries." Tom checked his weapon. "Time to teach some false gods a lesson." The shadow approached the station from below, using the massive energy output of the nearby sun to mask its signature. They docked successfully at the maintenance port, and Ray quickly bypassed the security systems. "We're in," he whispered as the airlock opened. They moved through the station in 2 groups, communicating via secure earpieces. Jack led his team through service corridors, avoiding the main hallways where voices and luminaries would be present. His ear, he heard Nia's voice. "We've reached checkpoint 1. 2 guards. Can you bypass?" Jack asked. "Negative. We need to go through." Jack tensed, waiting for the alarm, but a minute later Nia reported, "Clear. Alex knew the access codes from his partial conversion. We're moving to level 3. Jack's team reached the voice containment area without incident. Through a window they could see rows of tanks, each holding a different creature connected to machines. "How do we find Morrow's resistance members?" one of the soldiers whispered. "Alex said they'd be in the newer tanks, kept separate for processing," Jack replied. "There in the back section." Tom worked on the door lock while Jack kept watch. The hall remained empty. Most of the station's attention was directed elsewhere. Nia had released a small computer virus as a diversion, causing malfunctions in a distant part of the station. Once inside, they moved quickly between the tanks. Jack found what they were looking for: 5 tanks with different beings, all recently captured. Unlike the others, these voices were fully conscious, their eyes following the humans' movements. "These are the ones," Jack said. "Start with them." As they worked to free the captive voices, Jack's earpiece crackled. "Captain, we've reached the control hub," Nia reported. "But we have a problem. The system requires a luminary to authorize any changes." "Can you bypass it?" Jack asked, helping a tall, tentacled being from its tank. "Not quickly, but Alex thinks he might be able to fool the system using the partial voice programming in his mind. It's risky. He could lose himself." Jack hesitated. They hadn't planned for this. "Alex, your call." After a moment, Alex's voice came through. "I'll do it. For Earth. For all of them." Jack turned his attention back to the freed voices. There were 5 now, being helped by his team members. One was a bird-like creature with shimmering feathers. "You are the humans Morrow spoke of," it said, in a musical voice. "I am Krell, leader of what remains of my people. We're here to free you," Jack explained quickly, "and to stop the luminaries. Can you help us?" Krell nodded, stretching its wings. We have waited long for this moment. There are others who will join us once they are free. A sudden alarm blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. We've been detected, Tom warned. Weapon ready. Jack's earpiece came alive with Nia's voice. Captain, Alex is connected to the system. He's fighting the Luminary control, but security forces are heading your way. We need more time to upload the virus. How much time? Jack asked, helping the last of the resistance voices. 3 minutes minimum. Jack looked at Tom. We need to hold them off. Tom nodded grimly. The main corridor is the only approach. We can create a bottleneck. Do it, Jack ordered. He turned to the freed voices. Can any of you fight? Krell and 2 others stepped forward. We were warriors before we were voices, Krell said. Give us weapons. Jack's team set up a defensive position at the corridor junction, using overturned equipment as cover. The freed voices took positions beside them, their diverse bodies and abilities creating an unusual fighting force. Here they come, Tom warned. The first wave was a group of security voices, beings who had been converted long ago and now served the luminaries without question. Behind them floated several luminaries, their bodies glowing angry red. Hold until Nia gives the signal, Jack ordered. Then fall back to extraction point B. The battle was fierce but one-sided. The security voices had superior numbers, but Jack's team had better weapons and the element of surprise. The freed voices fought with special fury, finally able to strike back at their captors. In Jack's ear, Nia's voice was tense. Alex is struggling. The system is fighting back, trying to complete his conversion. Wait, something's happening. The system is accepting him as a voice. Is that good or bad? Jack asked, firing at an approaching guard. Good. He's in the system now. Uploading. Virus. Now. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, throughout the station, a strange sound rose, like thousands of whispers suddenly speaking at once. The security voices attacking them froze in place, their weapons lowering. It's working, Nia exclaimed. The whisper virus is breaking the control link. All voices across the station are receiving it. Jack watched in amazement as the security voices began to look around in confusion, as if waking from a dream. Some dropped their weapons. Others turned to look at the luminaries with new awareness in their eyes. The luminaries themselves seemed to panic, their glow pulsing erratically. Without the voices to translate and carry out their will, they were isolated. Now's our chance, Jack said. Let's move to extraction. They fought their way back toward the maintenance port where the shadow waited. More voices joined them along the way, freed by the virus and eager for revenge against their former masters. Nia's team met them at a junction, Ray helping Alex walk. The scientists looked exhausted, but triumphant. The virus is spreading through their entire network, Alex said weakly. Every voice in the Luminary Empire is hearing the whisper of freedom. And the neural disruptors? Jack asked. Ray grinned. We placed all 12. Better yet, Krell's people know how to make more. The voices we freed are permanently disconnected. As they reached the shadow, Jack looked back at the chaos they had created. Alarms still blared, but now the station was in full revolt. Freed. Voices were fighting back against the luminaries who had enslaved them for so long. We did it, Tom said in disbelief. We actually cut out the tongues of their gods. Jack nodded, watching as more freed beings boarded their ship. This is just the beginning. The war has only started. Behind them, the first explosions bloomed within the station as the freed voices took control. The shadow detached and slipped, away into space, carrying Earth's defenders and their new allies toward home and the coming battle. The shadow raced toward Earth, carrying Captain Jack's team and 23 freed voices. The ship was crowded, but no one complained. They had struck a powerful blow against the luminaries, but they knew retaliation would be swift and terrible. On the bridge, Jack met with Krell and the other voice leaders. The bird-like aliens' feathers had regained their bright colors since being freed from the tank. The whisper virus will spread through their entire network, Krell explained, but its effect is temporary. Within days, the luminaries will develop countermeasures. How many voices will be permanently freed? Jack asked. Thousands, perhaps. Those who were strong-willed or recently converted. But millions more will return to slavery unless more neural disruptors can be distributed. Alex, still weak from his connection to the luminary systems, spoke up. I downloaded their plans. Before we escaped. They're sending a full invasion fleet to Earth, hundreds of ships. Jack's face grew grim. How long do we have? 10 days, maybe less. Tom, who had been listening quietly, asked the question on everyone's mind. Can we win this fight? No one answered immediately. Finally, Krell said, The luminaries have never been defeated. But they have never faced humans before. The alien studied Jack with its sharp eyes. Your kind is different. You called their gods false to their faces. You struck back when others would have submitted. We're stubborn, Jack said with a slight smile, and we don't like bullies. Earth's reaction to the returning mission exceeded Jack's hopes. The sight of the alien voices, living proof of the luminary threat, convinced even the most skeptical military leaders. The technology brought back from the station, along with Alex's downloaded data, gave Earth scientists new weapons to develop. General Mills called a global defense meeting. Leaders from every nation gathered to hear Jack's report and see the freed voices. The luminaries will reach our solar system in less than 10 days, Jack told them. They have technology far beyond ours. In a direct fight, we would lose. Murmurs of concern filled the room. But, Jack continued, they have weaknesses. Without their voices, they cannot coordinate their forces effectively. They rely on the voices for everything, translation, technical work, even basic operations of their ships. And now, thanks to our allies, we know how to disrupt that control. Krell stepped forward. The alien's appearance caused a stir, but when it spoke, its musical voice commanded attention. My people fought the luminaries and lost. 50 other species did the same, but none of us fought together. Krell gestured to the diverse group of freed voices. Now we stand with humans. Together, we have a chance. Over the next week, Earth transformed. Factories worldwide shifted to producing weapons and shields based on luminary technology. The neural disruptors were mass-produced and modified to work at a distance. Every ship capable of spaceflight was armed and prepared for battle. Jack worked with military leaders to develop a defense strategy. The voices provided crucial intelligence about luminary tactics and weaknesses. They've never faced a coordinated resistance, Jack explained during a strategy session. They conquer one world at a time, convert enough of the population to control, the rest then move on. They're not prepared for multiple species working together. General Mills nodded. Divide and conquer. Classic strategy. But it only works if your enemies stay divided. 7 days after the Shadow's return, long-range sensors detected the luminary fleet entering the solar system. Over 300 ships moving in perfect formation toward Earth. Humanity's defenses looked small in comparison. A few hundred military vessels, hastily upgraded with alien technology, and thousands of smaller craft piloted by volunteers. But they had something. The luminaries didn't expect allies. Ships from 3 other worlds had arrived, brought by freed voices who had returned to their home planets with news of the rebellion. They were few in number, but brought unique technologies and fighting styles unknown to the luminaries. The battle began at the edge of Mars's orbit. The human fleet, led by Captain Jack aboard the refitted Shadow, met the luminary advance force. Remember the plan, Jack told his pilots. Don't engage directly. Hit and run. Keep them off balance while our special teams do their work. These special teams, composed of humans and freed voices, had a critical mission. While the main fleets battled, they would infiltrate key luminary command ships and deploy the improved neural disruptors, freeing more voices and disrupting luminary control. The space around Mars erupted in light as the fleets clashed. Luminary weapons tore through the first line of human defenses, but the Earth ships were more nimble, darting in to strike before retreating. From the Shadow, Jack watched the battle unfold. Beside him stood Krell and Alex, monitoring the progress of the special teams. Team 3 has breached the first command ship, Alex reported. Deploying disruptors now. On the main screen, they saw a luminary dreadnought suddenly falter, its weapons going silent. Moments later, communication came through from inside the ship. This is Team 3, ship secured, voices freed and taking control. Krell's feathers rippled with excitement. It's working, just like at the station. But the luminaries adapted quickly. Their remaining ships tightened formation, focusing their fire on the Shadow and other command vessels. The battle grew desperate as Earth's fleet took heavy losses. Team 2 is down, Alex reported grimly. Team 4 pinned down on target ship. Jack made a quick decision. Divert all reserve forces to support Team 4. We need that command ship disabled. The battle raged for hours. The Shadow shook with each near miss, its shields failing. 3 more luminary ships had been captured from within, but the bulk of their fleet remained intact and was pushing closer to Earth. We're losing too many ships, Tom warned. At this rate, they'll break through within the hour. Jack studied the tactical display, looking for an advantage. Then he noticed something, a pattern in how the luminary ships moved when one of their command vessels was compromised. They're protecting something, he realized. See how they shift to surround that large ship in the center? That must be their main command. Krell examined the ship Jack indicated. That is no ordinary vessel. That is a temple ship. It carries the luminary elders, those who direct their entire empire. Jack felt a surge of hope. If we could free the voices on that ship, the entire fleet might collapse, Alex finished. It was a desperate gamble, but they had no choice. Jack gathered the remaining special teams for one final mission, to infiltrate the temple ship at the heart of the luminary fleet. Jack himself would lead the mission. This is our best chance, he told his officers. If we fail, the Earth defense forces will have to fall back to the planetary shield. Tom insisted on coming with him. You'll need someone to watch your back, Captain. The insertion was the most dangerous part. The Shadow had to get close enough to the temple ship for the strike team to board. It meant flying through the heart of the luminary fleet. All ships provide covering fire, Jack ordered. Create a path for us, whatever the cost. Earth's fleet responded, launching a coordinated attack that momentarily drew the luminaries' attention. The Shadow slipped through the chaos, taking heavy damage but reaching the massive temple ship. Jack, Tom, and their team of humans and freed voices breached the hull and fought their way toward the central chamber. The ship was unlike any they had seen before, its corridors lined with glowing symbols, its architecture grand and imposing. They found the control center defended by dozens of luminaries. For the first time, Jack saw fear in the aliens' pulsing light. The luminaries had never expected enemies to reach the heart of their power. The fight was brief, but intense. When it ended, Jack stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by freed voices who were taking control of the ship's systems. Neural disruptors planted throughout the ship, Tom reported. All voices being freed. Jack activated the ship-wide communication system. His voice echoed not just through the temple ship, but was transmitted to every vessel in the luminary fleet. This is Captain Jack of Earth. Your gods have fallen. Your voices are being freed. The war is over, if you choose to end it. Throughout the luminary fleet, confusion reigned as more and more voices broke free of control. Some ships continued fighting, but others went silent or even turned against their former masters. The battle for Earth had been won, but Jack knew this was just the beginning. The luminary empire spanned hundreds of worlds, most still under their control. The war to free all voices would continue. On the temple ship's bridge, Jack looked out at the stars beyond Earth. Krell stood beside him, its wings spread in a gesture of hope. They called us savages, Jack said quietly. Now they know what that really means. Krell nodded. To fight for freedom with every breath. To never submit, even to gods. Behind them, freed voices from dozens of species worked together, sending messages to distant worlds with news of the rebellion. The luminaries' reign was ending. The savages had united, and the false gods would fall. The day after their test, the colony was buzzing with rumors. The sight of Dominion speakers falling to their knees, their sacred markings dark and lifeless, had sent shockwaves through both communities. Some colonists whispered of divine punishment, others of technical malfunctions. No one suspected the truth. Jack and his crew gathered in the cargo hold of the Fang, doors sealed and sensors scanning for listening devices. Paranoia was now their constant companion. "They're searching for answers," Mira reported, having just returned from the colony center. "The Dominion has brought in 3 more ships. They're calling it a divine investigation." "Are we suspects?" Tom asked, nervously tapping a wrench against his palm. "Not specifically," Mira replied, "but they're questioning everyone who has access to ships or long-range communication equipment." "That's half the colony," Doc noted. Jack paced the small space, thinking, "We need to move quickly. The longer we wait, the more likely they'll find silence." "Moving quickly gets people killed," Doc cautioned. "We still don't fully understand the ship's systems. One wrong move and we could permanently damage the network." "Or ourselves," Tom added. "That power source isn't exactly stable." Jack stopped pacing. "What's our timeline on getting silence, operational?" Mira consulted her notes. "The navigation system is partially restored. Life support is stable. The main propulsion system, that's trickier. Tom thinks 2 more weeks minimum." "We don't have 2 weeks," Jack said firmly. "The Dominion is already limiting food shipments as punishment for what they're calling spiritual interference. If we don't act soon, people will start going hungry." Tom sighed and stood up. "I can try to speed things up, but I'll need help, and we'll need to move more equipment from the colony without drawing attention." "I'll handle that," Jack decided. "Doc, continue working on understanding the network. Mira, you help Tom with the engines. We meet at Silence tomorrow at first light." The group dispersed, each with their tasks. Jack headed to the colony markets, where he could often pick up useful information along with supplies. The central square was busier than usual, with Dominion guards posted at every corner. Their slender forms and expressionless faces stood in stark contrast to the weathered, emotional humans they watched. At his favorite equipment stall, Jack found the owner, an older man named Pete, arguing with a Dominion official. "This scanner is basic mining equipment," Pete insisted. "It's been approved for colony use for years." The Dominion official, a lower-ranked technician rather than a speaker, scanned the device again. "New restrictions. This scanner can detect energy patterns beyond your authorized technological level." "How are we supposed to find ore deposits without proper equipment?" Pete demanded. "Manual labor is appropriate for your species' development stage," the technician replied coldly, confiscating the scanner. "The divine mandate is clear." As the official moved on, Pete noticed Jack watching. "Can you believe this garbage?" he muttered. "Yesterday they took all our atmospheric analyzers. Today it's mining equipment. Tomorrow they'll probably ban wheels for being too advanced." Jack nodded sympathetically while examining a pile of tools. "I need some specialized equipment for the Fang. Having trouble with the cooling systems." Pete glanced around before leaning in. "Come back after sunset. I've got some things hidden away. Good stuff. Pre-restriction. It'll cost you, though." "I'll be here," Jack promised. That night, Jack returned with a bag of rare minerals they'd collected during their last official mining run. The exchange was quick and nervous, both men aware of the consequences if caught. Jack left with a bag of tools that would help Tom restore Silence's engines, tools the Dominion had recently classified as spiritually corrupting for human use. The next morning, Jack arrived at Silence to find Tom and Mira already hard at work. The ancient ship's engine room was a marvel of engineering, with systems that seemed to flow organically into one another rather than being assembled from discrete parts. "We've made progress," Tom reported, his face streaked with grease. "The main power couplings are responsive. We had to bypass 3 damaged sections, but the core is stable." "What about propulsion?" Jack asked. Mira gestured to a pulsing blue cylinder in the center of the room. That's not like any engine I've ever seen. It doesn't burn fuel. It manipulates space itself. Can we fly it? Jack pressed. Theoretically, Tom replied. But there's no guarantee we'll be able to stop once we start. Doc appeared in the doorway, his expression grave. We have another problem. I've been monitoring Dominion communications. They've tracked the source of the disruption to this general area of the asteroid belt. They're sending a search team. Jack swore under his breath. How long do we have? 2 days, maybe less, Doc answered. Then we work through the night, Jack decided. Tom, focus only on the essential systems, propulsion and the network disruptors. Mira, transfer all the data we've gathered to the Fang's computers as a backup. Doc, keep monitoring their communications and see if you can slow them down somehow. For the next 48 hours, they worked relentlessly. Sleep came in short bursts. Meals were forgotten and every moment was filled with the urgency of their task. Tom performed mechanical miracles, Mira decoded complex alien programming languages, and Doc provided crucial insights into the network they aimed to disrupt. On the morning of the third day, exhausted but determined, they gathered on Silence's bridge. The engines are online, Tom reported. Not pretty, but functional. The navigation system is, well, alien, Mira admitted. But I think I understand the basics. What about the disruptor? Jack asked. Doc pointed to a modified console where they had integrated some of their own technology with the ancient systems. It's ready for a full-scale test, but Jack, we need to be clear about what this means. If we use this at full power, we won't just be interrupting the speaker's connection to their gods for a few seconds. We'll be attacking the entire network. Good, Jack said firmly. It's time the Dominion learned what it feels like to have their beliefs challenged. This goes beyond challenging beliefs, Doc cautioned. Their entire society is built around those connections. We could be causing a civilization-wide crisis. They're already causing a crisis for us, Jack replied. Every day they tighten their restrictions. Every day our people go with less food, less medicine, less freedom. All because some artificial intelligence from thousands of years ago decided we're savages unworthy of equality. No one argued with him. They had all seen the effects of Dominion rule, the slow strangulation of human potential. How do we do this without exposing ourselves? Mira asked. The moment we activate the disruptor at full power, they'll know exactly where we are. We don't hide, Jack said. We run. We activate the disruptor, then immediately jump to light speed. We head for the Dominion Central Worlds. Tom's eyes widened. You want to take the fight directly to them? That's suicide. It's the last thing they'll expect, Jack explained. They see us as cowering savages. They won't be prepared for us to attack the heart of their civilization. Even if we succeed, Doc said slowly, even if we reach their central worlds and disrupt their entire network, what then? They have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. Without guidance from their gods, those ships and soldiers will be in chaos, Jack pointed out. And chaos creates opportunity. A warning alarm blared from their sensors. Mira checked the readings and looked up with alarm. Dominion search vessels, 3 of them, approaching fast. They found us. Earlier than expected, Jack muttered. Everyone to your stations. Tom, are the engines really ready? Tom nodded, though uncertainty flashed in his eyes. As ready as they'll ever be. Mira, plot a course away from reach. I don't want the colony blamed for this. She hurried to the navigation console, fingers flying over the alien controls. Doc, prepare the disruptor. Low power at first. Let's not show our full hand immediately. As the crew rushed to comply, Jack took the pilot's position. The control interface was strange, responding more to intention than physical input, but he adapted quickly. Outside, the 3 Dominion ships grew larger on their sensors, sleek predators, closing in on prey. They're hailing us, Mira reported. Jack smiled grimly. Let them talk. They've had enough time to give orders. He looked around at his crew. Friends who had become family, united in their defiance of those who called them savages. Let's show them what savages can really do, he said. and activated Silence's ancient engines. The ship responded with surprising grace, sliding away from its hiding place among the asteroids. The Dominion vessels immediately changed course to intercept. "Disruptor charged," Doc announced. Jack nodded. "On my mark. Now." A pulse of energy unlike anything they had ever witnessed erupted from Silence, spreading outward in a wave that distorted the very fabric of space. The effect on the pursuing Dominion ships was immediate and dramatic. They faltered, drifting off course as their systems, and their speakers, lost connection to the network they depended on. "Full power to engines," Jack ordered. "Let's go. Cut out some God's tongues." Silence leapt forward, leaving the disabled Dominion ships behind as it accelerated toward the stars, carrying its human crew and their dangerous knowledge into the heart of their oppressor's domain. For 3 weeks, Jack and his crew kept the ancient ship a secret. They made regular supply runs to maintain appearances, bringing back just enough resources to avoid suspicion from the Colony Council. But every spare moment was spent aboard. The derelict, which they had nicknamed Silence for the way sound seemed to die within its strange corridors. "I think I figured out part of their language," Mira said one day. She was hunched over a portable computer, cross-referencing symbols from the ship's console with patterns they had documented throughout the vessel. Jack looked over her shoulder. "Can you read any of it?" "Not exactly red," she replied. "But I'm starting to understand the logic. It's not like any human or Dominion language. It's mathematical, pure logic." Tom entered the chamber they had designated as their workspace, carrying a piece of machinery. "Found this in what I think was an engine room. The technology is incredible. It uses principles we haven't even theorized yet." Doc followed behind, his expression troubled. "We need to talk about the ship's power source. It's still functioning after thousands of years, which should be impossible by any standard we understand." Jack nodded. "What's keeping it running?" "That's just it," Doc said. "The energy signature, it's similar to what the Dominion speakers use to communicate with their gods." A heavy silence fell over the group. "Are you saying this ship is connected to the Dominion's religion?" Jack asked finally. "Not exactly," Doc replied. "I'm saying this ship might help us understand what their gods really are." Mira's computer chimed, drawing their attention. "I've managed to activate more of the main console," she said. "Look at this." The holographic display above the console expanded, showing a complex network of light points connected by pulsing lines. At various intersections, larger nodes glowed, with particular intensity. "It's a communication network," Mira explained. "And these bright spots, they're receiving and transmitting massive amounts of data." "To where?" Jack asked. "That's the thing," Mira said. "These coordinates match known Dominion holy sites, places where their speakers supposedly commune with their gods." Tom whistled low. "You think their gods are talking through this network?" "I think," Doc said carefully, "that their gods might be this network." Jack stared at the display, the implications slowly sinking in. "An artificial intelligence network," he said finally. "Ancient and advanced, guiding the Dominion civilization." "Controlling it," Mira corrected. "Look at these data patterns. They're not suggestions, they're directives, commands." Before they could discuss further, an alarm sounded from the Fang. They had left a connection to the ship's systems active at all times. "Dominion patrol," Tom reported after checking the alert. "Heading toward the colony, not us, but we should get back anyway." They returned to the Fang, minds reeling with their discovery. As they pulled away from Silence, carefully noting its coordinates, Jack made a decision. "We need to understand more before we tell anyone," he said. "If the Dominion's entire society is built around these gods that aren't gods at all, exposing, that could cause chaos." "Or liberation," Doc countered. "Depending on who learns the truth." The journey back to Reach was tense. As they approached the colony, they saw 3 sleek Dominion ships in orbit, more than the usual diplomatic delegation. "Something's happening," Mira said, monitoring colony communications. "The speakers have called an emergency meeting with the council." Jack landed the Fang at their usual pad and instructed the crew to act normal. "Keep our findings quiet. I'll go to the meeting and find out what's happening." The colony center was busier than usual, with worried faces hurrying through the dusty streets. Jack slipped into the back of the council chamber just as the meeting began. 3 Dominion speakers stood at the front, their tall, slender forms, draped in flowing metallic garments that seemed to move with a life of their own. Their smooth, pale faces bore the characteristic markings of their rank, intricate patterns that glowed with soft blue light. "The divine mandate has been updated," announced the lead speaker, its voice melodious but cold. "Your expansion into the Western Territories must cease immediately. The gods have declared that area sacred." The colony leader, an older woman named Anna, stood firm. "Those territories contain essential water sources for our growing population. We've already begun construction on—" "Your construction will stop," the speaker interrupted. "The will of the gods is not negotiable. Those who defy divine mandate risk losing all protection and trading privileges." Jack felt anger rising within him. The Western Territories contained the richest farmland on Reach. Without it, the colony would struggle to feed itself, becoming even more dependent on Dominion trade that came with increasingly restrictive terms. After the meeting, Jack found Anna alone in her office, her face lined with worry. "This is the 3rd restriction this month," she said when she saw him. "First the mining limitations, then the technology ban, now this. They're slowly choking us, Jack." "Have they given any real reason?" he asked, careful not to reveal what he knew. Anna shook her head. "Just divine mandate. We can't argue with their gods, can we?" The bitterness in her voice was clear. "What if their gods aren't what they claim?" Jack said cautiously. Anna gave him a sharp look. "Careful, Jack. That kind of talk is dangerous. The speakers have ways of knowing when we question their authority." "Of course," he replied, just thinking aloud. He left the colony center and rejoined his crew at a quiet corner of the local tavern, where the noise would mask their conversation. "It's getting worse," he told them. "They're restricting access to the Western Territories now." "That's where the best farmland is," Tom said. "Without it, we become completely dependent on them," Mira finished. "Classic control tactic." Doc leaned forward. "While you were gone, I analyzed more of the data from Silence. The ship wasn't just built to communicate with the network. It was designed to disrupt it." Jack's eyes widened. "You mean we could interfere with the messages from their gods?" "Potentially," Doc nodded. "The ship contains technology that can intercept, decode, and even alter the signals. That would be seen as blasphemy by the Dominion," Mira warned. "They'd destroy the entire colony in retaliation." "Not if they don't know who's responsible," Jack countered. "We need to test this. A small disruption, something that could be attributed to natural interference." They spent the next 2 days preparing. While the colony struggled to adjust to the new restrictions, Jack's crew returned to Silence with the equipment they needed. Doc and Mira worked to activate the ship's communication systems while Jack and Tom kept watch for Dominion patrols. "I think we're ready," Doc announced finally. "I've programmed it to create a brief disruption in the network, just 30 seconds. It should affect the nearest node, which happens to be on the Dominion ship currently in orbit around Reach." "Will they be able to trace it?" Jack asked. "Unlikely," Mira replied. "The technology is far beyond their understanding, ironically. They worship these systems without truly comprehending them." Jack took a deep breath. "Do it." Doc activated the sequence. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the holographic display showed a ripple effect spreading through the network, centering on the node representing Reach. "It's working," Mira whispered. Back at the colony, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The Dominion speakers, in the middle of another meeting with the council, suddenly clutched their heads and fell to their knees. Their facial markings flickered and went dark. "The voices," one speaker cried out. "The gods are silent." Panic spread through the Dominion delegation. For 30 seconds, their connection to their gods, the guiding force of their entire civilization, was gone. When it returned, the speakers were visibly shaken. "A test," the lead speaker announced, trying to regain composure. "The gods test our faith." But Jack and his crew, watching the aftermath from a distance, saw something else. They saw fear. "They've never experienced silence before," Doc said quietly. "Their entire lives they've had those voices guiding their every move. And now they know it can be taken away," Jack added, a grim smile forming on his face. "We've found their weakness." "What now?" Tom asked. Jack looked toward the Dominion ships hovering in orbit, their sleek forms no longer seeming so intimidating. "Now," he said, "we learn how to cut out their gods' tongues for good." The red soil of Reach crunched under Jack's boots as he walked toward the landing pad. The colony had been established 20 years ago, but the ground still felt foreign beneath his feet. Above him, the twin moons hung like watchful eyes in the amber sky. Jack pulled his jacket tighter against the morning chill and squinted at the familiar shape of his ship in the distance. The Fang wasn't pretty. Its hull was patched in a dozen places, and its paint job had long since faded to a dull gray. But it was fast, and it was his. In the frontier colonies, that was all that mattered. "Captain on deck," Tom called out with a grin as Jack climbed the ramp. Tom was Jack's oldest friend and the ship's engineer, a burly man with a wild beard and clever hands that could fix almost anything. "Save it," Jack said, but he smiled anyway. "Is everyone here?" Mira's running final checks on the navigation system, and Doc is loading the last of the supplies. Jack nodded and made his way to the bridge. The inside of the Fang was cramped but functional, with exposed wiring and pipes running along the ceiling. It wasn't fancy, but it kept them alive in the void. Mira looked up from the control panel as he entered. Her dark hair was tied back in a practical knot, and her eyes were sharp with intelligence. "Morning, Captain. We're cleared for takeoff in 20 minutes. "Any word from the outpost at Sector 7? Jack asked, settling into the pilot's chair. "Nothing new," she replied. "Just the usual request to scan the asteroid belt for viable mining. Locations." Doc appeared at the doorway, wiping his hands on a rag. He was the oldest of the crew, with gray hair and steady hands that had saved all their lives more than once. "Medical supplies are loaded, though I don't know why the Colony Council thinks we can find better medicine in a bunch of floating rocks." "Because they're desperate," Jack said simply. "The Dominion's trade restrictions are getting tighter every month." The mention of the Dominion brought a somber mood to the bridge. The alien civilization had made contact with humanity 5 years ago, and their technological superiority had been immediately apparent. Their ships moved like liquid silver through space, and their weapons could disable a human vessel without leaving a mark. But it was their attitude that rankled most. To the Dominion, humans were primitives, savages barely worth acknowledging, except to restrict their movements and access to resources. "I heard they're sending another delegation to the colony tomorrow," Tom said as he joined them on the bridge. "Probably to explain how we're violating some other divine mandate we've never heard of." Jack frowned. The Dominion's ruling class, who called themselves the Speakers, claimed to commune directly with their gods. These gods supposedly guided their civilization and justified their dominance over lesser species like humans. "Let's just focus on the job," Jack said. "The colony needs resources the Dominion won't provide. We find them, we get paid, we eat for another month." The Fang lifted off smoothly, despite its age. Jack guided it through the thin atmosphere of Reach and into the blackness of space. The ship's engines hummed with reassuring familiarity as they set course for the asteroid belt at the edge of the star system. "ETA to the belt is 4 hours, Mira announced. "I've plotted a course to avoid the Dominion patrol routes." "Good," Jack replied. "Last thing we need is another inspection." The last time they'd encountered a Dominion patrol, the aliens had boarded the Fang and spent hours scanning every inch, looking for technology they deemed inappropriate for savage species. They'd confiscated a prototype scanner that Doc had been developing and lectured them about the proper path of technological development, as ordained by their gods. The journey to the asteroid belt passed in relative quiet. Tom tinkered with the engines, Doc inventoried their supplies, and Mira kept a watchful eye on the long-range scanners. Jack used the time to review the colony's needs: metals for construction, rare minerals for medicine, and water ice for the hydroponics facilities. Approaching the belt, Mira called out eventually. Starting initial scans. The view screen filled, with the chaotic dance of the asteroid belt, chunks of rock and ice tumbling through the void in an eternal orbit around the distant sun. I'm picking up something strange, Mira said suddenly, her fingers moving quickly across the control panel. There's a large object in a stable orbit within the belt. It's not showing up as a natural formation. Jack leaned forward. Dominion? She shook her head. No identifying signatures I recognize. It's old, really old, based on the radiation. Patterns. Put it on screen, Jack ordered. The image shifted, zooming in on what at first appeared to be just another asteroid. But as the image cleared, they could see that it wasn't a rock at all. It was a ship, or what remained of one. Its design was unlike anything Jack had seen before, neither human nor Dominion. The hull was dark and angular, with strange protrusions that might have once been weapons or sensors. That's not possible, Doc whispered. That ship design, it doesn't match any known configuration. How long has it been there? Jack asked. Mira ran more scans. Based on the orbital decay, thousands of years at minimum. Tom whistled low. Before humans even left Earth. Before the Dominion claimed this sector. Are there any active systems? Jack asked. Minimal power readings, Mira replied, but something still functioning in there after all this time. Jack stared at the ancient vessel floating silently among the asteroids. A decision formed in his mind, one that he knew might change everything. Bring us alongside, he ordered. We're going to dock. Captain, Doc said carefully, the colony is expecting us to return with resources. And we will, Jack replied. But first, I want to know what this is. The Dominion calls us savages because we lack their technology. What if this ship changes that equation? No one argued further. They all felt it. The potential importance of their discovery. The Fang approached the derelict vessel cautiously. Up close, the alien design was even more apparent. The hull was made of a material none of them recognized, unmarred by the countless impacts it must have endured over millennia. I've found what might be a docking port, Mira said. It's compatible with our systems, which doesn't make any sense. Unless it was designed to be universal, Doc suggested. A ship meant to connect with many different types of vessels. The docking procedure went surprisingly smoothly. The ancient airlock accepted their connection as if it had been waiting for them. Jack, Tom, and Doc suited up while Mira stayed aboard to monitor the Fang systems. The airlock cycled, and they stepped into the unknown. The interior of the derelict was dark and cold, their helmet lights cutting bright swaths through the blackness. The architecture was strange. Corridors that curved in unexpected ways and doorways sized for beings both larger and smaller than humans. Look at this, Tom said, running a gloved hand over a panel covered in symbols. Some kind of written language, but nothing like Dominion script. The air is thin but breathable, Doc reported, checking his scanner. And there's minimal gravity, something still powering life support after all this time. They moved deeper into the vessel, recording everything they found. In what appeared to be the ship's bridge, they discovered a central console that still glowed with faint light. Jack approached it carefully. The surface responded to his proximity, symbols flowing across it like water. It's welcoming us, he said in amazement, as if in response a holographic display activated above the console. It showed a star map, but not of any configuration they recognized. Points of light connected in complex patterns with one pulsing dot that seemed to represent their current location. This is beyond anything the colony has, Tom said. Maybe even beyond the Dominion. Jack nodded slowly. And it responded to us. Not to the Dominion that claims this sector, but to us, the savages. In that moment, Jack made a decision that would change the course of human history on Reach. We don't tell anyone about this, not the Colony Council, and especially not the Dominion. We study it first, understand what we've found. The speakers claim their gods give them the right to rule. Doc said quietly, what if this ship gives us a way to challenge that claim? Jack's hand hovered over the ancient console, feeling the power of possibility. Then maybe it's time to show them that savages can have sharp teeth too. The journey to the Dominion home system took 5 days. 5 days during which Jack and his crew pushed silence to its limits, learning its systems through trial and error. 5 days during which they intercepted dozens of Dominion communications, all speaking of the same thing: the spiritual attack in the Reach system and the missing human ship. They don't understand what happened, Doc reported, listening to yet another panicked transmission. The speakers are telling their people that evil spirits have possessed savage humans. Easier than admitting their gods went silent, Mira commented from the navigation console. She had barely slept since they fled, constantly monitoring their course through unfamiliar space. Tom emerged from the engine room, wiping his hands on a rag. The power core is stabilizing. I think I'm starting to understand how it works. It draws energy directly from subspace. Can it handle another full disruption? Jack asked. Tom hesitated. Yes, but not repeatedly. Each use strains the system. We might get 3, maybe 4 big disruptions before the core fails. Jack nodded, absorbing this information. Their plan would need to be precise. No room for error. What about the Dominion fleet? He asked, turning to Mira. She pulled up a holographic display. They're scrambling ships from every sector, creating a defensive perimeter around their central worlds. They know we're coming, but they don't know exactly where or when we'll arrive. Or what we're capable of, Doc added. Their entire defense strategy assumes we're just primitive humans in a stolen ship. Jack studied the display, noting the concentration of ships around one particular planet, Lumina, the Dominion capital and home to their largest temple complex. According to the information they'd gathered, it was also the central hub of the AI network that posed as their gods. We need to get to Lumina, Jack decided. Not just close enough for a disruption, we need to land. The others stared at him, in disbelief. Land? On the Dominion capital? Tom exclaimed. That's beyond risky. That's impossible. The disruptions are temporary, Jack explained. We've seen that. The network recovers, adapts. If we want to make a lasting change, we need to access the central hub. Even if we somehow get past their fleet, the surface defenses will destroy us before we land, Mira pointed out. Jack smiled. Not if all those defenses suddenly lose their connection to the guidance systems that control them. Understanding dawned on their faces. A targeted disruption, Doc said slowly. Not a broad wave like before, but focused specifically on their defense network. Exactly, Jack confirmed. We hit their defenses first, then make our approach while they're blind. They spent the next day preparing. Tom fine-tuned the disruption array with Doc's help, modifying it to focus on specific frequencies used by the Dominion defense systems. Mira plotted multiple approach vectors, looking for the path of least resistance. Jack studied every bit of information they had on Lumina, searching for a viable landing site close to the central temple. As they approached the outer perimeter of the Dominion home system, the ship's sensors detected the first wave of defenders, sleek patrol vessels, arranged in a perfect formation. They're hailing all approaching ships, Mira reported. Standard identification protocols. Ignore them, Jack ordered. Shields at maximum. Prepare the focused disruptor. The patrol vessels broke formation, moving to intercept the unidentified ship entering their space. Warning shots flashed across Silence's bow. Disruptor ready, Doc announced, his hand hovering over the activation control. Wait for my mark, Jack said, eyes fixed on the tactical display. He needed the perfect moment, when the maximum number of ships would be affected. The Dominion vessels moved closer, their weapons charging for a more serious attack. Communications flooded their receivers, demands to stop, identify, surrender, now, Jack commanded. Doc activated the disruptor. Unlike their previous use, this time the energy pulse was narrow, focused, directed specifically at the frequencies used by Dominion weapons and navigation systems. The effect was immediate. The approaching ships faltered, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos as their systems failed. Full power to engines, Jack ordered. Straight through their line. Silence shot forward, passing through the disoriented patrol fleet before they could recover. Alarms blared throughout the Dominion system as word of the breach spread. Ahead, they could see more ships moving to block their path. A second line of defense. Another disruption ready? Jack asked. Doc shook his head. The Corps needs time to recharge, 2 minutes minimum. Evasive maneuvers, Jack told Mira. Get us past them without a direct confrontation. Mira's hands danced across the controls, guiding Silence through a series of impossible turns and dives. The ship responded with surprising agility, as if it understood the urgency of their mission. Several Dominion vessels gave chase, but their weapons fire fell short or was absorbed by Silence's ancient shields. Corps recharged, Doc reported as they cleared the second defensive line. Save it, Jack replied. We'll need it for the planetary defenses. Lumina grew larger on their view screen, a blue-green world surrounded by orbital platforms and defense satellites. Beyond it, the system's sun cast everything in a golden light that seemed cruelly beautiful given the danger they faced. Final approach vector locked in, Mira announced, taking us in toward the northern continent. That's where the main temple complex is located. Planetary defense is activating, Tom warned. Energy readings off the scale. They're throwing everything at us. Now, Doc, Jack ordered. Maximum focus on the orbital platforms. The disruptor fired again, its energy precisely calibrated to the frequencies used by Lumina's defense grid. The effect rippled outward, causing the orbital platforms to go dark one by one. On the surface, lights flickered across entire cities as the disruption affected ground-based systems as well. It's working, Mira said with wonder in her voice. Their entire defense network is failing, but their success was short-lived. The ship shuddered violently as a single energy beam struck their port side. Manual weapons, Tom shouted. They've got gunners using manual targeting. Another hit rocked the ship, sending sparks flying from several consoles. Shields down to 40%, Doc reported. We can't take much more of this. Jack gripped the control panel tightly. Stay on course, push the engines to maximum. Silence plunged toward the planet's surface, trailing smoke and debris. Behind them, Dominion ships gave chase, but most were still recovering from the disruption. Only a few managed to follow them into the atmosphere. Approaching the temple complex, Mira called out. But our landing options are limited with the damage we've taken. The vast temple complex spread out below them, its crystalline spires reaching toward the sky. At its center stood the largest structure, a perfect dome that gleamed with unnatural light. According to their research, this was the housing for the central node of the network, the heart of the Dominion's false gods. Take us down right on top of the central dome, Jack ordered. Mira looked at him in shock. That's not a landing. That's a crash. Exactly, Jack replied grimly. The disruptor won't be enough. We need to physically destroy the central node. Understanding and determination replaced the shock on Mira's face. She adjusted their course, aiming Silence directly at the dome. Impact in 30 seconds, she announced. Everyone secure yourselves. They strapped into crash harnesses, bracing for impact. Outside, the few functioning Dominion defenses fired desperately at the descending ship, but it was too late to stop them. Tom, divert all remaining power to the forward shields, Jack ordered. Doc, prepare for a final disruption on impact. Core ready, Doc confirmed. On impact, it'll release everything it has left. Tom finished the power adjustments and looked around at his friends. It's been an honor, he said simply. Jack nodded, his eyes fixed on the approaching dome. For Reach, he said. For all the colonies they called savage. For freedom, Mira added. The temple complex filled their view screen, the central dome growing larger by the second. Around it, speakers and other Dominion officials fled in panic, their connection to their gods already weakening from the ship's proximity. Brace for impact, Jack shouted as Silence plunged toward its target. The ancient vessel struck the dome with catastrophic force, its shields flaring brilliantly as they absorbed the initial impact. The structure beneath them cracked and then collapsed, unable to withstand the tremendous energy. Doc triggered the final disruption as they crashed through, releasing a wave of energy that spread outward from the impact site. Throughout the Dominion, worlds, every speaker fell silent at once as their connection to the network was severed completely. For the first time in thousands of years, the gods of the darkness, pain, the taste of blood. These were Jack's first sensations as consciousness returned. He blinked, trying to clear his vision in the dim emergency lighting. Around him, the bridge of silence lay in ruins. Sparks flew from shattered control panels. Support beams had collapsed, the air was thick with smoke and dust. "Mira? Tom? Doc?" he called, his voice barely above a whisper. A groan came from his right. He turned to see Mira struggling to free herself from beneath a fallen section of ceiling. With effort, Jack unstrapped from his chair and crawled to her side. "Are you okay?" he asked, helping move the debris. "Been better," she managed. The others. Together they searched the wreckage, finding Tom unconscious but breathing near the engine room access. Doc was in worse shape, a deep gash across his forehead, but his pulse was steady when Jack checked. "We survived," Mira said in wonder, looking around at the destruction. "I didn't think any of us would." "Silence protected us," Jack replied. Its structure absorbed most of the impact. As if to confirm his words, they noticed the ship's hull had cracked open in several places, revealing the structure they had crashed into. Through one such opening, they could see the interior of the shattered temple dome. "We need to move," Jack decided. "The Dominion will send soldiers as soon as they recover from the disruption." "And go where?" Mira asked. "We're on their home world, thousands of light years from reach. First, we find out if we succeeded," Jack said. "If the central node is destroyed, we've given ourselves a fighting chance." They roused Tom, who had a broken arm but could walk, and together they carried the still unconscious Doc toward the opening in the hull. The temple interior was vast and eerily silent. Crystalline structures that once glowed with power now lay, dark and broken. At the center, where silence had driven deepest, a massive apparatus was exposed, a sphere of impossible complexity, now shattered into thousands of fragments. "The central node," Tom whispered. "The heart of their god network." And, "We killed it," Mira added. "Not killed," came a weak voice. Doc had regained consciousness. "Freed." Jack helped him stand. "What do you mean?" "The network wasn't just controlling the Dominion," Doc explained, pointing to the scattered fragments. "It was being controlled itself. Look at those restraining fields. Those aren't designed to protect, they're designed to imprison." Before they could discuss further, the sound of approaching vehicles reached them. Jack led them to a hiding place behind a fallen column, where they could observe the temple entrance. The first to arrive weren't soldiers as expected, but lower caste Dominion citizens, the workers and servants who maintained the temple but were never allowed to speak directly to the gods. They entered cautiously, their simple clothes a stark contrast to the opulence around them. One, slightly taller than the rest, approached the wreckage of silence. Unlike the speakers, these Dominion citizens had no glowing markings on their faces. Their expressions were easy to read: confusion, fear, but also hope. "What are they doing?" Mira whispered. Jack shook his head, equally puzzled. More Dominion citizens were arriving by the minute, gathering around the crashed ship and shattered node. They spoke to each other in hushed tones. Then something unexpected happened. The tall one who had first approached the wreckage turned and addressed the growing crowd. "The silence is real," he announced, his voice carrying through the vast space. "For the first time in memory, we hear only our own thoughts. The gods speak no more." A murmur ran through the crowd, not panic but something closer to wonder. "All my life," the speaker continued, "I was told the gods spoke only to the speakers, that only they were worthy to hear divine wisdom, that the rest of us must obey without question. But now I think perhaps there were never any gods at all." Jack and his crew watched in amazement as the crowd responded not with anger or denial, but with growing excitement. More citizens arrived, including some from higher castes, their ornate clothing marking their status. Yet they joined the gathering as equals, all united in their new silence. We should show ourselves, Jack decided. Are you crazy? Tom hissed. They'll kill us. I don't think so, Jack replied. Look at them. They're not angry. They're liberated. Before the others could stop him, Jack stepped out from their hiding place. The reaction was immediate. The crowd fell silent, all eyes turning to the injured human walking toward them. I am Jack, he said simply. From the human colony on Reach, the tall Dominion citizen who had spoken earlier stepped forward. You did this, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Jack admitted. We destroyed the network that your speakers called gods. He braced for anger, for violence. Instead, the Dominion citizen did something shocking. He bowed. Then we owe you our freedom, he said. For generations, the speakers have ruled us through their exclusive connection to the gods. They told us what to think, who to hate, how to live. They called you savages to make us fear you. Others from Jack's crew emerged from hiding, joining him before the crowd. What happens now? Mira asked. Revolution, came a new voice. A female Dominion citizen pushed through the crowd. By her clothing, she had been part of a technical caste, just below the speakers in rank. It's already beginning across the planet. The speakers have lost their power. Without the gods' guidance, the military is in disarray. Some are following their final orders, but many are standing down. The Dominion spans thousands of worlds, Jack pointed out. Not all of them will welcome this change. Then we will need allies, the tall citizen replied, perhaps starting with the humans who were brave enough to show us the truth. In the days that followed, the revolution spread like wildfire. The disruption of the central node had affected the entire network. Across the Dominion Empire, speakers found themselves unable to commune with their gods. Lower castes, long oppressed, seized the opportunity for freedom. Not all transitions were peaceful. On some worlds, loyal military forces fought to maintain the old order, but they were fighting without the strategic guidance they had relied on for centuries. Their coordination failed. Their resolve weakened. Jack and his crew became unlikely diplomats, helping forge an alliance between the human colonies and the reforming Dominion society. Their knowledge of the ancient ship and its technology proved invaluable, as both species worked to understand the true history of the region. 1 month after the destruction of the central node, Jack stood on a balcony overlooking the former temple complex, now converted into a center of learning open to all citizens. Beside him stood Len, the tall Dominion citizen who had first welcomed them. The last of the loyal speaker forces surrendered on Terex 3 yesterday, Len reported. The revolution is nearly complete. And the colonies? Jack asked. All restrictions have been lifted, Len confirmed. The first joint human-Dominion research team arrived at Reach this morning. Jack nodded, satisfaction warming him, despite his still healing injuries. And silence? Our engineers have learned much from what remains. It appears the ship was built by the same civilization that created the network. Not as a weapon, but as a safeguard. A way to free the network if it ever became corrupted or misused, which it was, Jack said, for thousands of years. Yes, Len agreed. The network was meant to be a guide, a repository of knowledge from an ancient civilization. But the early speakers found a way to restrict access, to control what it said and who heard it. They turned a teacher into a master. Jack looked out at the city below, where humans and Dominion citizens now walked together. What will you call yourselves now? Dominion doesn't seem appropriate anymore. Len considered this. We are thinking, the free world's conquered. A bit grand, perhaps, but hopeful. I like it, Jack said. Better than savages, anyway. Len made the gesture that Jack had learned was the equivalent of a smile. Perhaps being a savage isn't so bad, if it means being brave enough to question gods. As the sun set over the city, Jack thought about the ship that had brought them here, the ancient vessel that had been waiting patiently among the asteroids for someone to find it, someone desperate enough or perhaps savage enough to use it. The network wasn't completely destroyed, he said thoughtfully, just the controlling elements. Yes, Len confirmed. Our technicians believe it could be restored, as the teaching tool it was meant to be, accessible to all. Jack nodded, already thinking of the possibilities, of knowledge freely shared, of humans and the former Dominion working together, of exploring the stars without false gods or artificial limitations. Then, let's rebuild it, he said, together. The bridge of the human vessel Defiance was quiet, except for the soft beeping of damaged systems. Captain Jack stood by the main viewport, his eyes fixed on the stars beyond. Less than 24 hours ago, those same stars had been filled with enemy ships now. An uneasy calm had settled across this sector of space. "Damage report," Jack called out, turning to face his crew. Officer Rex looked up from his station, dark circles under his eyes showing his exhaustion. Hull integrity at 68%, weapon systems at 45% capacity, main engines working but not at full power, life support stable. Jack nodded. It could have been worse. Much worse. When the Defiance had unexpectedly dropped out of hyperspace in the middle of what turned out to be Galactic Council territory, no one had expected a warm welcome. But no one had expected immediate attack either. "Any sign of them returning?" Jack asked. "Nothing on long-range scanners," said Tina, the ship's sensor specialist. "They seem to have pulled back to regroup." Jack walked to the center command chair and sat down heavily. His mind replayed the battle that had erupted when the alien fleet opened fire without warning or attempt at communication. The Defiance, though only one ship, had managed to hold its own. Earth's military technology, developed in isolation, had proven surprisingly effective against the Council's standardized weapons. "They'll be back," he said quietly. "And next time, they'll bring more ships." Across the galaxy, in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. Representatives of 12 major alien species argued loudly, their voices echoing off the high ceiling. Admiral Krell, a tall green-skinned being from the verdant species, slammed his fist on the central table. His 4 eyes narrowed in anger as the room gradually fell silent. "One ship," he shouted. "One single human ship damaged 4 of our patrol vessels and killed 23 crew members. This cannot stand." Counselor Pell, an older member of the bird-like avi species, raised a feathered hand. "We attacked them first, Admiral. Perhaps they were simply defending themselves." "They were in restricted space," Krell shot back. "The quarantine of their sector has stood for 5,000 years. There are reasons their kind was isolated." From the shadows of the chamber, Intelligence Officer Tora watched the debate with interest. Unlike the others, she had spent the night searching the Council's oldest records. What she found disturbed her. Mentions of humans were surprisingly scarce for a species dangerous enough to warrant complete isolation from the galactic community. One ancient file, heavily encrypted, had caught her attention. It suggested the quarantine had been established not because humans were dangerous, but because they asked too many questions. Questions about the Council's authority. Questions about freedom. Tora slipped away from the chamber. She needed to dig deeper before sharing her findings. Back on the Defiance, the crew gathered in the meeting room. Maps and tactical displays covered the walls, showing their position relative to known space. "We have 3 options," Jack said, addressing the 25 humans who represented Earth's first deep space mission. "First, we try to run. The jump drive needs at least 48 hours to recharge, but we might find a place to hide until then." Engineer Sam shook his head. "With the damage we took, they'd track our emissions easily." "Second option," Jack continued, "we attempt communication, try to explain that we meant no harm by entering their territory." Medical Officer Anna frowned. "They fired without sending a single message. They may not be interested in talking." "The third option," Jack said, his voice lower, "is to prepare for another fight." The room fell silent. They were explorers who had been forced to become warriors. Each person there knew that the Defiance, remarkable as it was, couldn't stand against an entire galactic force. "There might be a fourth option," said comm specialist Pete, who had been quietly working at a terminal. "I've been analyzing their communications during the battle. They use a standardized system across their fleet. I might be able to tap into their network." Jack raised an eyebrow. "To do what?" "To listen," Pete replied. "Find out what we're dealing with. Maybe find some leverage." "Do it," Jack ordered. "In the meantime, Sam, get repair teams working around the clock. Everyone else prepare for both diplomacy and defense. We represent all of humanity out here, and I won't let Earth become a target because of our actions." Admiral Krell stood, alone in his command ship, staring at holographic images of the human vessel. Its design was unlike anything in the Council database. Efficient, practical, deadly. His aide entered the room quietly. "The Council has reached a decision, Admiral. And they've authorized a full battle group, 5 capital ships, 20 support vessels. You're to eliminate the human threat before they can report back to their homeworld." Krell nodded in satisfaction. "The quarantine must be maintained. Humans are unpredictable. The ancient records are clear on that point." "There's something else, sir," the aide added. "Intelligence Officer Tora has been accessing restricted files about Earth, files from before the quarantine." The Admiral's expression darkened. "Find her. Now." Tora moved quickly through the lower levels of the Council station. She had downloaded as many files as she could before her access was inevitably discovered. Now she needed to find a secure transmitter. The truth had to get out. Humans hadn't been quarantined for the safety of the galaxy. They had been isolated because they represented a different way of thinking, a challenge to the Council's absolute authority. Finding an unused communications bay, she quickly set up the equipment. She didn't know if the human ship would receive her transmission, but she had to try. "To the Earth vessel," she began, speaking in the common galactic language. "You are in grave danger. The Council has ordered your destruction. But there are those among us who question the old ways. The quarantine of your world was not what you have been told." She paused as a noise in the corridor caught her attention. Security forces were coming. She quickly finished her message and sent it, erasing all evidence of the transmission just as the door slid open. On the Defiance, Pete's eyes widened as an unexpected message came through his modified receiver. "Captain," he called over the ship's comm. "You need to see this now." Jack arrived moments later, joined by several other officers. They watched in silence as Tora's message played. According to these old records, the alien woman's voice continued, "Humans were once part of the galactic community. Your adaptability, your creativity, your questioning nature, these were seen as threats by those in power. The Council didn't fear your violence. They feared your ideas." The message cut off abruptly. "Can we track where this came from?" Jack asked. Pete nodded. "A station about 2 light years from here." Jack looked around at his crew, their faces showing a mix of confusion and determination. "It seems," he said slowly, "that we didn't start this war after all. We just reminded them of one they thought they'd finished long ago." He straightened his uniform. "Change of plans. Set course for that station. If there are allies out there, we need to find them before Krell's forces find us." The Defiance turned silently in space, heading toward an uncertain rendezvous and a conflict far bigger than one ship could handle alone. Humanity's return to the stars had begun with a battle, but perhaps it would continue with an alliance. The war for the galaxy's future was just beginning. The Defiance moved quietly through the asteroid field, its damaged hull blending with the rocky surroundings. Captain Jack stood on the bridge, watching as they approached the coordinates from the mysterious transmission. "Any signs of a trap?" he asked, not taking his eyes off the main screen. Tina shook her head. "Nothing on sensors, Captain. But this field messes with our readings. Could be hiding anything." Jack nodded. The decision to come here had been risky. The crew had voted. Most agreed they needed allies, but some worried they were flying straight into Council hands. "There," pointed Rex. "That large asteroid. It's hollow." As they drew closer, they could see what looked like an old mining station built into the massive rock. Metal doors, long unused, stood half open like a mouth waiting to swallow them. Scan for life signs, Jack ordered. I'm picking up several, Tina replied. Not human, different from what we saw on the council ships. They're waiting inside. Jack took a deep breath. Take us in, slow approach. Weapons on standby but not locked. Let's not start shooting unless we have to. The Defiance eased forward, sliding through the open doors into a vast, dark hangar. As the ship's lights swept the area, they revealed rusty mining equipment and several smaller ships parked in the shadows. Match their atmosphere and prepare the landing party, Jack said. Pete, Rex, Anna, you're with me. Everyone else stays alert. If things go wrong, don't wait for orders. Get the ship out safely. Inside the abandoned control room of the mining station, a group of aliens waited nervously. Their leader, Mira, paced back and forth. She was tall and slender with pale blue, skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Unlike the council forces, her people looked almost human-like, except for their color and the slight glow of their eyes. They're here, said one of her companions, looking at a monitor. Just one ship, as promised. Are you sure this is wise? Asked another. If the council discovers we've made contact with humans, the council has lied to us for generations. Mira cut him off. It's time we learned the truth. The door slid open and 4 humans entered cautiously. Mira noticed right away how similar they were to her own kind. More solid, different colored, but the same basic shape. The records were right. I am Captain Jack of the Earth vessel Defiance, said the lead human. We received your message. Mira stepped forward. I am Mira of the Solarians. The message you received was from our agent in the council, Tora. She risked everything to contact you. Where is she now? Jack asked. Mira's expression darkened. Captured. The council doesn't tolerate those who question. Admiral Krell watched with satisfaction as the prisoner was brought before him. Intelligence Officer Tora looked defiant despite her bruised face. You sent a message to the humans, he stated. It wasn't a question. They deserve to know the truth, she replied. Krell laughed, a harsh sound. The truth? That humans were once part of our community, that they were quarantined not for violence but for their annoying habit of questioning authority? He waved a dismissive hand. Ancient history. Not so ancient, Tora said quietly. The files show Earth was isolated only 5,000 years ago. A blink in galactic time, and they were already developing space travel then. Imagine what they might have become now. It doesn't matter, Krell snapped. They will be eliminated before they can cause trouble. My battle group leaves within the hour. He leaned close to her. And you will tell me who else knows about this. Who else helped you access those files? Tora smiled thinly. The Solarians helped me, and they've already contacted the humans. Krell's 4 eyes widened in alarm. He turned to his aide. Change of plans. Track that human ship. Now. Back at the mining station, Mira led the humans into a small meeting room where a holographic display showed maps of the galaxy. Our peoples share more than you know, she explained. The Solarians and humans are distant cousins, both evolved from the same seeded species in different parts of the galaxy. Seeded? Anna asked, her medical curiosity engaged. The oldest races spread life across the stars, Mira said. But that's a story for another time. What matters now is that the Council fears both our peoples for the same reason. We don't blindly obey. Jack studied the star map. So where do we fit in? One damaged ship against an entire galactic government doesn't sound like good odds. We have a network of rebels, Mira explained. Small groups on many worlds who question Council rule. But we needed a spark, something to show resistance is possible. She looked Jack directly in the eyes. Your ship fighting off a Council patrol was that spark. News is spreading even though they try to control it. Rex frowned. So we're propaganda? Your hope, Mira corrected. And we have technology to share. Ways to repair your ship, improve your weapons. Before Jack could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. One of Mira's crew rushed in. Council drones, he shouted. They found us. The small automated attack drones swarmed into the asteroid field, scanning every rock. They were the first wave, scouts for the battle group that followed behind. Inside the mining station, panic erupted. Mira's rebels rushed to their ships while the humans ran back toward the Defiance. "We need more time," Sam shouted over the comm. "The new tech Mira gave us isn't integrated yet," Jack thought quickly. "Tina, what's the composition of these asteroids?" "Mostly iron and nickel," she replied. "Some have traces of radioactive elements." "Perfect," Jack said. "Sam, can you modify our sensor array to send out a pulse that would trigger those elements? Make them look like engine signatures?" Sam's voice perked up. "Give me 5 minutes." Jack turned to Mira, who had joined them on the run. "Get your people to the far side of the field. We're going to create a distraction." Admiral Krell watched impatiently as his drones searched the asteroid field. His battle group of 5 large warships waited at the edge, weapons charged. "Sir," called his sensor operator, "we're detecting multiple engine signatures throughout the field." "How many?" Krell demanded. "Dozens, sir. Possibly 100. It appears to be a major rebel fleet." Krell's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Send half the drones to investigate, prepare the battle group to—" He never finished his sentence as a massive explosion ripped through the asteroid field. The humans had detonated charged particles in several asteroids, creating a chain reaction that destroyed most of the drones and disrupted the sensors of Krell's ships. In the confusion, the Defiance and 3 smaller Solarian vessels slipped away from the mining station, taking a hidden route through a dense dust cloud. On the bridge, Jack looked at Mira with new respect. "Your people fought well." Mira nodded. "As did yours." "The Council won't expect humans to adapt so quickly to space combat." "Where to now?" Jack asked. Mira's eyes gleamed with excitement. "There's an ancient station in the Forbidden Sector. The old records Tora found suggest it contains technology from before the Council took control. Technology that might help us fight back." Jack smiled. "Then that's where we're going. Looks like one human ship just found some friends in this galaxy after all." As the small rebel fleet jumped to light speed, news of their escape spread among hidden resistance groups across the stars. The war had only just begun, but for the first time in 5,000 years, the Council faced an enemy they didn't understand. Humanity was back. The small fleet of ships dropped out of hyperspace in a region of space that seemed darker than normal. Few stars shone here, and those that did appeared dim and distant. Captain Jack stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the main view screen with a mixture of awe and unease. "The Forbidden Sector," said Mira, who stood beside him. "No Council ships patrol here. They claim it's because of dangerous radiation, but the truth is, they fear what might be found." "And what exactly are we looking for?" Jack asked. Mira pointed to a faint shape in the distance. That, as they drew closer, the shape became clearer. A massive space station, its design unlike anything the humans had seen before. It wasn't the straight lines and efficient angles of Council architecture, nor was it like Earth's practical, functional designs. This was something else entirely. Curved, almost organic, as if it had grown rather than been built. "It's ancient," Mira explained. "Dating back to before the Council ruled the galaxy. The records Tora found suggest it was built by the same civilization that first brought humans into the galactic community." The ships approached cautiously. The station appeared, dead with no lights or signs of power. Its surface was scarred by what looked like weapons fire from long ago. "No energy readings," reported Tina from her sensor station. "If there's anything working in there, it's well shielded." Jack turned to Sam, who had been studying the station's design. "What do you think? Can we dock safely?" The engineer nodded, slowly. "Those look like docking ports along the lower section. Old design, but I think we can modify our airlocks to connect." "Do it," Jack ordered. Then he turned to Mira. "I want to know exactly what we're looking for in there." Mira's eyes gleamed in the dim light of the bridge. "Knowledge, power, and perhaps a way to defend Earth when the Council decides to break the quarantine and attack your homeworld." 3 hours later, a mixed team of humans and Solarians made their way through the dark corridors of the ancient station. Their flashlights created eerie shadows as they moved deeper into the structure. "The air is breathable," noted Anna, checking her handheld scanner. "Someone designed this place to last." Rex ran his hand along a wall. "These markings, they look like some form of writing," Mira nodded. "The language of the predecessors, those who came before all of us." They continued forward until they reached a vast circular chamber. In the center stood what appeared to be a control pedestal. Sam approached it cautiously. "This design, it's strange but somehow familiar, almost like it was made for human hands." "Or Solarian," added Mira, holding up her own hand, which did indeed look very similar to a human's despite her blue skin. Sam studied the pedestal more closely. I think it needs power." He opened his pack and pulled out a portable generator they had brought from the Defiance. With careful movements, he connected it to what seemed to be power inputs on the base of the pedestal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, lights began to appear throughout the chamber. The pedestal itself glowed with a soft blue light, and symbols appeared on its surface. "Can anyone read this?" Jack asked, looking at the unfamiliar script. Before anyone could answer, the symbols shifted, changing form until they became recognizable as modern galactic standard language. "Welcome, descendants," a voice said from nowhere and everywhere at once. Adaptive translation complete. The team stepped back in surprise as a holographic figure appeared above the pedestal. It had a vaguely humanoid shape, but was composed of light patterns that constantly shifted and flowed. "I am Sentinel," the figure said, "guardian of knowledge and keeper of truths." Jack stepped forward. "I am Captain Jack of the Earth vessel Defiance." The hologram seemed to study him. "Earth, human. It has been 5,247 standard years since humans last accessed this facility." Mira gasped. "That matches the time frame of the quarantine." Sentinel turned its attention to her. "Solarian, genetic cousins to humans, both seeded from the same source material by the predecessors." "What happened here?" Jack asked. "Why was this station abandoned? Why were humans quarantined from the rest of the galaxy?" The hologram flickered slightly. "This station was a center for knowledge exchange between species. It was attacked by those who sought to control rather than share. As for humans..." The figure seemed to look directly at Jack. "Your kind was feared not for your weapons or aggression, but for your unpredictability, your ability to adapt, to find solutions others could not see." "The Council," Mira said bitterly. "Yes," confirmed Sentinel. "They established their rule by creating standardized systems for everything. Technology, governance, thought itself. Humans refused to conform. You asked questions. You found different paths. This made you dangerous to their order." Jack's expression hardened. "So they locked us away, kept us isolated from the rest of the galaxy." "They attempted to erase your existence from galactic history," Sentinel said, "but some remembered. Some preserved the truth." Sam, who had been examining the technology around them, spoke up. "Can you help us? The Council knows we've broken quarantine. They'll attack Earth soon." The hologram seemed to consider this. "This facility contains defensive technology that was once used to protect free worlds from Council aggression. It has lain dormant for millennia, but it can be reactivated." Hope surged through the team. Jack stepped closer to the hologram. "Where is this technology? How do we access it?" Sentinel's form expanded, and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared around them. A point of light pulsed in a sector not far from their current position. "There," the hologram said. "A shield generator capable of protecting an entire star system. It was hidden before the final assault on this station." "This could save Earth," Jack said, his voice filled with determination. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Sentinel's form flickered more violently. "Warning. Council vessels detected entering the sector. Their numbers are significant." Jack turned to the others. "How did they find us?" Rex checked his scanner. The power surge when we activated this place must have been detectable even through the radiation fields. Jack's mind raced. They were trapped in an ancient, mostly powerless, station with multiple Council warships closing in. But they also had the location of a weapon that could save Earth. "Sentinel," he said urgently, "can you download your data to our systems? We need everything you know about the shield generator and human history in the galaxy." The hologram nodded. Initiating data transfer. Sam quickly connected their portable systems to the pedestal. "This will take a few minutes." "Minutes we may not have," said Mira, who was receiving reports from the ships they had left docked outside. "Admiral Krell himself is leading this attack. 5 capital ships and a full support fleet." Jack looked at the map still hovering in the air, showing the location of the shield generator. They had to reach it. Earth's survival depended on it. "We need a plan," he said, his voice steady despite the danger. "And I think I have one. It's risky. But if there's one thing the Council still doesn't understand about humans, it's how dangerous we can be when cornered." As the data transfer continued, Jack gathered the team to explain his idea. Outside, the Council ships moved into attack position, their weapons charging. The race to save Earth had become a desperate fight for survival. Alarms blared throughout the Defiance as the ship rocketed away from the ancient station. Behind them, the first shots from Admiral Krell's fleet slammed into the abandoned structure, tearing apart its outer sections. "Did everyone make it back? Aboard?" Jack asked, gripping the arms of his command chair as the ship shook. "All accounted for," Rex confirmed. "Mira and her team are on their ships. Data transfer from Sentinel completed at 97% before we had to disconnect." On the main screen they could see the Council ships, 5 massive warships surrounded by smaller attack vessels. They were forming a blockade, cutting off the most direct route to the coordinates of the shield generator. "They want us to run," Jack said, understanding the enemy's strategy. "They're leaving a path open for us to flee, probably right into another ambush." Sam looked up from where he was analyzing the data they had downloaded. "Captain, I found something. According to these star charts, there's a wormhole junction about half a light year from here. It's a nexus point with paths to 7 different sectors." "Including the one where the shield generator is located?" Jack asked. Sam nodded. "Yes, but according to Sentinel's data, the Council strictly controls this junction. It's heavily guarded." Jack studied the tactical display, a plan forming in his mind. What if we don't try to sneak through? What if we do something they would never expect? "Like what?" Tina asked. "Like turn a wormhole into a weapon," Jack replied. Admiral Krell watched with narrowed eyes as the human ship and its Solarian allies changed course, heading away from his fleet, but not in the direction he had expected. "They're moving toward the Nexus Junction," his tactical officer reported. "Should we pursue?" "No," Krell said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he thought. "They're heading into a trap. Commander Vex has 2 patrol groups stationed at the junction. Alert him that targets are incoming." His communications officer hesitated. "Sir, Commander Vex reports the junction is experiencing unusual gravitational fluctuations. 3 of the wormhole paths have become unstable." Krell frowned. "Natural phenomenon?" "Unknown, sir. It began shortly after the human ship left the ancient station." Something didn't feel right. Krell had studied what little the Council knew about humans. They were adaptable, unpredictable. "Set course for the junction," he ordered. "Maximum speed." The Nexus Junction came into view. A spectacular sight where space itself seemed to twist and bend. 7 massive wormholes arranged in a circle, each leading to a different sector of the galaxy. Around them floated Council defense platforms and patrol ships. On the bridge of the Defiance, Jack turned to Sam. "Are you ready?" The engineer nodded, though sweat beaded on his forehead. "It's untested technology, Captain. Based on the mining techniques we use on Earth, but scaled up significantly." "What exactly are we doing?" asked Mira through the communication link from her ship. "On Earth, we use controlled resonance waves to break apart rock formations when mining," Jack explained. "Sam believes we can modify our shield emitters to create similar waves that will affect the gravitational stability of the wormholes." "You want to collapse the wormholes?" Mira asked, sounding shocked. Not collapse them, Sam corrected. Just disrupt them enough to create chaos. It's like throwing a stone into a pond. The ripples will affect everything nearby. Jack nodded. The Council ships have standardized shields calibrated for energy weapons and physical impacts. They won't be prepared for gravitational distortions. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. They needed to break through to the shield generator coordinates, and this junction was the only way to get there quickly enough. Council, ships are hailing us, Rex reported. They're ordering us to power down and prepare to be boarded. Ignore them, Jack said. All ships move into position. Execute on my mark. The small fleet split up, each vessel taking position near a different wormhole entrance. The Council patrol ships began to move to intercept. Now, Jack ordered. The Defiance's modified shields activated, sending invisible waves of energy toward the nearest wormhole. The other Allied ships did the same. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to tremble. Commander Vex watched in horror as his sensor displays went crazy. The wormholes were fluctuating wildly, their entrances expanding and contracting like beating hearts. What are they doing? He demanded. Stop them. His ships opened fire, but the gravitational distortions were already affecting their targeting systems. Most shots went wide, and those that did hit seemed to have minimal effect. Then the first patrol ship was caught in a gravitational wave. It spun helplessly, crashing into a defense platform. Both exploded in a ball of fire. It's working, Sam shouted over the noise of straining engines. The junction is destabilizing. On the main screen, they could see the Council forces in disarray. Ships tumbled out of control as the gravity waves rippled through the area. 2 of the wormholes had grown to twice their normal size, while others had shrunk almost to nothing. Alcimine, ships head for the Sector 7 passage, Jack ordered. That was the wormhole that would take them closest to the shield generator's coordinates. The Defiance led the way, diving toward one of the larger wormholes. Behind them, new alarms sounded. Admiral Krell's fleet has arrived, Tina reported. They're launching fighters. Jack gripped his chair tighter. How long until we can enter the wormhole? 30 seconds, replied the pilot. But in its unstable state, I can't guarantee a safe passage. We don't need guarantees, Jack said firmly. We need courage. At that moment, several Council fighters caught up to them, firing repeatedly at the Defiance's engines. Shields failing. Rex shouted. Divert all power to engines, Jack ordered. We need to reach that wormhole. The ship surged forward, trailing debris and venting plasma. The wormhole entrance loomed ahead, a swirling mass of energy that pulsed erratically. 10 seconds to entry, the pilot called out. A massive explosion rocked the ship as one of the enemy shots found its mark. The main lights failed, replaced by red emergency lighting. We've lost the port engine, Sam reported from engineering. We're drifting off course. Jack looked at the tactical display. Mira's ship was still intact, still on course for the wormhole, but the Defiance was falling behind, becoming an easy target for Krell's approaching fleet. Mira, Jack called over. The comm. You need to go through. Get to the shield generator. We'll hold them off as long as we can. No, came Mira's response. We go together, or not at all. Before Jack could argue, a small Solarian craft piloted by one of Mira's crew shot forward, placing itself between the Defiance and the attacking fighters. This is Pilot Alex, came a calm voice. I'll buy you time. They watched in awe as the small craft executed a series of impossible maneuvers, drawing enemy fire and creating a path for the damaged Defiance. Get to your crash positions. Jack ordered his crew. We're going through. With its remaining engine blazing at full power, the human ship lurched toward the wormhole entrance. Behind them, Alex's ship erupted in flames as it rammed a Council fighter, taking out 3 more in the resulting explosion. The last thing Jack saw before the swirling energies of the wormhole engulfed them was Admiral Krell's flagship opening fire, its massive weapons tearing through the space they had just occupied. Then everything became a blur of light and sound as the small fleet of rebels plunged into the unknown, leaving chaos in their wake. Emerging from the wormhole was like being born again. The Defiance tumbled through space, systems flickering as the crew fought to regain control. 3 Solarian ships followed behind, their hulls scorched but intact. "Damage report," Jack called, out wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. Rex checked his console. "Life support stable, weapons at 30%. Engine 2 completely gone. Engine 1 at 60% capacity. Communications damaged but working." "Where are we?" Jack asked. Tina studied her readings. "Exactly where we wanted to be. The shield generator coordinates are in this system, about half a light hour from our position." The crew let out a ragged cheer. They had made it through against impossible odds. Jack allowed himself a small smile before turning serious again. "What about Krell? Any sign of pursuit?" "Not yet," replied Rex. "The wormhole is still unstable. They'll have trouble following right away, but they will come." Jack nodded. "Then we don't have much time. Let's find this weapon before they arrive." The small fleet limped toward a distant moon orbiting a gas giant. According to Sentinel's data, this was where the ancient shield generator had been hidden. As they drew closer, they could see the moon was little more than a barren rock, its surface pockmarked with craters. "I'm not detecting any artificial structures," Tina reported, frowning at her console. "It must be underground," Mira suggested through the comm link, "or hidden by some technology we can't detect." Sam, who had been analyzing the data from Sentinel, spoke up. "Wait, these coordinates aren't pointing to the moon itself. They're leading us to a specific point in its orbit." Understanding dawned on Jack's face. It's not on the moon. It's in orbit around it, cloaked somehow. He ordered the ships to adjust course, moving to the exact coordinates Sentinel had provided. For a few tense minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly, Tina's console lit up with new readings. "Something's there," she exclaimed. "Some kind of energy field is reacting to our presence." Before them, space seemed to ripple and fold. Then, like a curtain being pulled aside, a massive structure appeared. It wasn't a weapon or shield generator as they had expected. It was a space station, but unlike any they had seen before. Its design was elegant, peaceful even, with sweeping curves and gleaming surfaces that reflected the distant sun. "It's beautiful," Anna whispered. Jack studied the structure carefully. "Any defenses? Weapon systems?" "Nothing obvious," replied Rex. "In fact, I'm picking up an automated docking signal. It's inviting us in." Jack exchanged glances with his officers. It could be a trap, but they had come too far to turn back now. "Take us in," he ordered. "But stay alert." The inside of the station was even more impressive than its exterior. Wide corridors with high ceilings led to open chambers filled with what appeared to be gardens and fountains, though they had long since dried up. The air was stale but breathable. Jack led a mixed team of humans and Solarians through the station, following the directions provided by Sentinel's data. They eventually reached a central chamber where a large console stood covered in dust. "This is it," Sam said, approaching the console. "According to the data, this is the control center for the weapon." Carefully, he wiped away the dust and placed his hands on what appeared to be a control panel. The surface responded to his touch, lighting up with soft blue light. A holographic display appeared above the console, showing the galaxy in miniature. Points of light indicated thousands of worlds connected by lines representing trade routes and communication networks. "I don't understand," Jack said, staring at the display. "Where's the weapon? The shield technology?" The hologram shifted, zooming in on their current location. A soft female voice spoke, similar to Sentinel's but somehow warmer. "Welcome, seekers of truth. You have found not a weapon, but something far more powerful. This is the Harmony Array, created by the coalition of free worlds before the councils. Rise to power." Sam's eyes widened as he studied the data streaming across his device. "It's a communication system, the most powerful ever built. It can broadcast to every world in the galaxy simultaneously, bypassing all council communication controls." Jack looked confused. "But Sentinel said it was a defensive system that could protect Earth." "Knowledge is the ultimate defense," the voice replied. "The Council's power comes from control of information. They isolate worlds like Earth to prevent ideas from spreading. This array was built to ensure truth could never be silenced. Mira stepped forward, her eyes shining. That's why they feared humans. Not because you were violent, but because you shared ideas freely. Because you questioned everything. And that's why they quarantined Earth, Jack said slowly, understanding, dawning. They didn't want our questions spreading to other worlds. Sam was already working at the console. There's more here. Historical records, data about every world in the galaxy, including Earth. The true history of the Council's rise to power. Can we use it? Jack asked. Can we actually broadcast to the entire galaxy? Sam nodded. The system is operational. It just needs to be activated. A new alarm sounded from their communication devices. Captain, came Tina's voice from the Defiance. Council ships have emerged from the wormhole. They've found us. Admiral Krell's fleet is on approach. Weapons. Hot. Jack looked at the holographic display, at the countless worlds that had lived under Council rule for millennia. Worlds that had forgotten there was another way to live. How long until they reach us? He asked. 20 minutes at most, Tina replied. Jack turned to his team. Then we have 20 minutes to change the galaxy. Sam, get this array online. Mira, gather every piece of evidence about Earth's quarantine and the Council's lies. We're going to tell everyone the truth. Admiral Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as they approached the now visible ancient station. Target their engines and communication systems, he ordered. I want that human ship disabled, not destroyed. They must not be allowed to reach Earth with what they've learned. His tactical officer hesitated. Sir, we're detecting an unusual energy buildup from the station. It appears to be some kind of transmission. Krell's four eyes widened in alarm. Jam it, now. We can't, the officer replied, panic in his voice. It's using frequencies and methods we've never seen before. It's bypassing all our communication blocks. On the station, Jack stood before a simple recording device. Behind him, Sam worked furiously to keep the broadcast running while Council jamming attempts bounced harmlessly off the ancient technology. People of the galaxy, Jack began, his voice calm and clear. My name is Captain Jack of the Earthship Defiance. You may have heard that a human vessel attacked Council forces without provocation. That is a lie. He gestured to the historical records displayed beside him. The truth is that humans were once part of the galactic community. We were quarantined 5,000 years ago, not because we were dangerous, but because we asked questions the Council didn't want answered. As he spoke, the broadcast reached world after world. On thousands of planets, normal Council transmissions were interrupted. In homes, workplaces, and public squares, beings of all species watched and listened as a human told them about freedom they had forgotten. The Council doesn't protect you, Jack continued. It controls you. It standardizes your technology, your governance, even your thoughts. It isolates any species that dares to be different. He held up the data crystal containing Sentinel's historical records. We have proof. Earth was not the first world to be quarantined, and unless something changes, it won't be the last. Outside, Krell's ships had arrived, surrounding the station. Their weapons powered up, ready to fire. We may not survive the next few minutes, Jack said, his voice unwavering. But our message will. The truth cannot be quarantined. Freedom of thought cannot be standardized. The Council's time is ending. On countless worlds, something long dormant began to stir. Questions were asked. Records were examined. Old tales of a time before the Council suddenly seemed less like legends and more like history. As the first shots from Krell's fleet struck the station, Jack looked at his crew and their Solarian allies. Despite the danger, he saw no fear in their eyes, only determination. We did it, Mira said softly. The revolution has begun. Jack nodded. And whatever happens next, Earth will not stand alone. The station shook as more weapons fire hit it, but the broadcast continued, spreading across the stars like a wildfire of truth. On some worlds, beings were already taking to the streets. On others, leaders were questioning orders from the Council, for the first time in memory. The war that had started with one human ship was no longer just about survival. It had become something much greater, a fight for the freedom of an entire galaxy. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a small fleet was already plotting a course to Earth, carrying allies and hope for the battles yet to come.